Welcome back, eco students. All right, this chapter 11 in microeconomics, if you click on your PowerPoint within Blackboard, you will see there we are going to talk about public goods and common resources. Again, slightly less quantitative. And so this chapter, what are public goods, what are common resources, and why do markets generally fail to provide efficient amounts of these goods, right? And how might the government improve market outcomes in the case of public goods or common resources? All right, so if you remember, one of the 10 principles from chapter 1, governments can sometimes improve market outcomes. So as much as I like to say that an unfettered marketplace is a perfect marketplace, there are certain areas within an economy that the government needs to intervene, right? Goods that we consume without paying, parks, national defense, clean air and water, things like that, goods that have no prices. The market forces then, without pricing, they can't allocate resources, right? And so a private market would fail to provide the socially efficient quantity of any of these types of goods. All right, so there are several key items to remember from this chapter. Important characteristic of goods. A good, we're going to talk about a few different items here. A good is excludable. Okay, this is one of our vocab this week. If a person can be prevented from using it. Okay, so excludable. Fish tacos, wireless internet, right? Why is a fish taco excludable? Because there's only a certain amount and you have to buy it, right? Wireless internet access can have a password. What's not excludable? AM, FM radio signals, right? Anyone can get them. If you have a radio, you can pick them up. They're not like, you don't have to pay extra for them. What else? National defense, not excludable. I can't say student A, B, and C, you can't be part of national defense protecting you, right? We're all here in the country being protected by national defense. There's no way to exclude anyone. A good is rival in consumption. Here's the second one. If one person's use of it diminishes another person's use. So a rival in consumption would be fish tacos. You go to a taco truck, right? And they have a finite amount of food. They're able to make 50 tacos. So if I purchase 49 tacos, the next person in line it diminishes their use. They can only purchase one because I purchased all 49. And so it diminished my use, diminished their ability to use it. Something that would not be a rival would be, for example, an MP3 file, right? Just because I get it doesn't take away from anyone else buying it, right? It's unlimited. It's not a rival in consumption. All right, so those are two types of goods, excludable, rival in consumption. The goods can either be excludable or not excludable, rival in consumption, meaning one person's use diminishes the other, or not rival. Now, we're going to look at 4 different types of goods. Private goods are excludable and rival, both, right? Because they're food. These are called private goods. So not only are they excludable, meaning certain people can be prevented from using them, right? If there are 50 tacos and I eat all 50, there you go. And rival in consumption, when it comes to food, one person eating it diminishes another person, right? It's a finite resource. Public goods, on the other hand, are the opposite. They are not excludable, public goods versus private goods, and not rival. And so we are on page 5 here, or slide 5 of the PowerPoint. And so that example would be national defense, right? Public goods. There's no way to exclude anyone, and no one else's usage or protection by using national defense as their protector. My being here doesn't diminish anybody else's, right? So we have private goods versus public goods. The next two, common resources versus club goods. Common resources are rival, but not excludable, meaning one person's use diminishes another person's, but we don't really have a way of excluding anyone from using these items. So this example would be fish in the ocean, right? Anyone could go out on a boat or on a pier and fish. Club goods, on the other hand, are excludable, but not rival. For example, club goods, cable TV, right? My usage of cable TV does not prevent my neighbor from using cable TV or diminish their ability to use it, but I have to buy it, right? So my neighbor can't use it unless they buy it. They're excluded from it. So we have common resources, public goods. couple examples. So the road example, take a look at the example of how a road might work, right? This idea of 4 possibilities: uncongested non-toll road, uncongested toll road, congested non-toll road, and congested toll road. So take a look at that example. This is a wonderful example. Okay, so this chapter focuses on public goods and common resources, more so than club goods or private goods, right? We're focusing on public goods and common resources. And the issue is that this thing called externalities arise because something of value has no price on it, right? There's something of value, but we have no way to individually price it. And so we have no way of allocating it to different people, right? And so private decisions about consumption and pricing and whatnot would not lead to an efficient outcome. So in this situation, public policy or government have to step in. The government has to step in and potentially help the economic well-being. All right, so public goods. The issue with public goods and how they are difficult for private markets is something called a free rider, right? A free rider is a person who receives the benefit of a good but avoids paying for it. So if a good is not excludable, people have incentive to be free riders, right? And so because you cannot prevent non-payers from consuming the good. And so in reality, because it's not excludable, no private company would get into this marketplace, right? The good's not produced. And so that is the issue with this free rider situation. Public goods, a study that compares the cost, and we see something called a cost-benefit analysis, right? So measuring the benefit, though, is usually difficult. If the benefit of a public good exceeds the cost of providing it, this is what in a typical private market we would see, where there's supply and demand. We don't see these items. So the government has to provide the good and pay for it with a tax on the people who benefit, right? Because otherwise, if a cost-benefit analysis were done, we would find that it would be imprecise, right? And so we wouldn't be able to get anyone to enter into this marketplace from a sale side, from a supply side. And some important public goods that you all know of: national defense, knowledge that's created from basic research, and things like fighting poverty or nonprofits. All right, so common resources like public goods are not excludable. We cannot prevent free riders from using them, right? And so private firms do not want to get involved. There's little incentive for them. And so the government has to provide these, right? The additional problem with common resources is this thing called rival in consumption. Each person's use reduces another person's ability to use it. And so the government has to ensure that the items are not overused. And so the narrative that we use to depict this to depict common resources, the parable that the setting here, so this tragedy of commons, it's a phrase that we use to talk about how common resources get used up, right? A medieval town where sheep graze on common land. This is the scenario. As the population grows, the number of sheep grows. Sounds like a good plan, right? But what happens? The amount of land is fixed. There's a tipping point. The grass begins to disappear as more and more. Guess what? The lifeboats are sinking, right? They are overpopulated. The private incentives using the land for free outweigh the social incentives, right? Oh, we get to use the land for free? Well, then let's just put as many goats on it as possible. Well, what happens? The social incentive is to use it carefully. Well, if it's free, why would I use it carefully, right? And so what happens is everything gets overgrazed. And the result is there's actually a Dr. Seuss book about this, right? There's nothing left then. People can no longer raise sheep because they eat all the grass. There's too many sheep. Basically, like the lifeboats sink because too many people are on them, right? And this tragedy of commons is due to an externality. Allowing one's flock to graze in the common land reduces its quality for other families because it can be diminished. People neglect the external cost, and it results in an overuse of land. Now, how do we prevent that? We prevent it through public policy, and there are a few suggestions here, and some important common resources: clean air and water, congested roads, and other wildlife that we see licensing and whatnot related to. Conclusion: Public goods tend to be underprovided while common resources tend to be overconsumed. Two key things from this chapter: public goods and common resources and their characteristics. And these problems arise because property rights are not well established. No one owns the air, no one can charge polluters. The result is too much pollution. No one can charge people who benefit from national defense. Result, too little national defense. So the government has to step in and take care of some of these things, right? Take care of and put regulation that prevents pollution. And they have to step in and tax so that they can use that tax money to fund national defense. All right, so that is your chapter 11, much shorter than chapter 8. So 8 and 11, and there are questions relating to 8 and 11. If you have questions for me, again, you can reach out to me via text, reach out to me. I don't buy right? But reach out to me via email. You can stop in and see me, make an appointment. I can be on campus Monday, Wednesday by noon, West Campus or East Campus. I'm over there on Monday and Wednesdays by noon. Or I am on campus usually 12 to 1 until 2:30 on Tuesday and Thursday, or I can meet with you afterward at like 4. I have a class that I teach that will be done. If you can meet any of those times, I could meet in the evening if you make a special appointment. Just let me know. Because we are getting down to the wire. We are in week 5. We are ticking away. And some of you are a little behind on homework, and I'm a little concerned. And so I would really love it if you reached out to me so that you could get caught up. There's just some key elements from each chapter that maybe if you are missing one of those or just maybe not understanding them quite so well, we could kind of brush up on those and get you going and move you forward. As always, have a wonderful afternoon. Homework will be due next week, roughly Tuesday, Wednesday, and we will be going into week 6 then. So it is critical that you try to get caught up on your homework. Again, if you get through most of the homework and there's a problem or two on one of the chapters that you don't understand, make a note of it and send it to me. You can also drop your homework off. If you put my name on it, you could drop it off at the front desk, and they will get it to me at West Campus. If you want to physically drop it off and not email it, you could snap a picture of it and send it to me via phone. You have my phone number, 814-490-6473. I think that's it. So have a wonderful afternoon, and I will talk to you soon.